Welcome to the Awesemo MMA Live for Lock show right here at Awesemo.com. I am Jason Foy, as always, joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. We are here to break down UFC 26 goes down tonight. Lock is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, so you have plenty of time to get those lineups in. Of course, we'll be here for the next hour, and then I'll be over in Slack, talking to our subscribers if you do have any questions or whatnot. But Pete, happy fight day to you, man. Interesting roster construction for this one. I will tell you, so I was doing some crunches a little earlier. I had two lineups in the initial crunch that had $3,000 left over.
Wow. Yeah. I think you're going to have to get different on a card like this. I mean, small amount of fights means chalk city, especially when you have, the main event not really priced up. So I think that roster construction is going to be imperative, and nailing the correct underdogs, obviously, goes without saying. That's how you're going to really climb up the ladder. And I feel like it could be a week of 3+ underdogs coming through for you that really separates you from the pack. And it's just a matter of getting those groups correct in Fantasy Cruncher, making sure your exposure is correct. For me, it would be, prioritizing the main event because their salary relief, I think, is just important for roster construction. But yeah, man, I think it's going to be an interesting lineup that takes it down tonight.
My exposure on the main event was 55-35. So 55% for Stipe, 35% for Francis.
Okay.
Look, and this is my one thing about the main event, and I do think it's a must roster fight, but I didn't want to go quite 100% on it. But yeah, you bring up a great point about how much salary relief it does have there. I just look at if Stipe wins, it's likely he's a slate breaker that you're gonna have him in your lineup. But if Francis wins, and we were talking about this via text message a little earlier on today about whether or not he could be optimal. I was going, as I first text that to you, you kind of, changed my mind a little bit here if Francis wins, look, it's by knockout first round, most likely. Maybe early second round, but most likely it's in the first round. But if he can somehow get a knockout in the first 60 seconds, clearly he's optimal. But I think the question is, if he doesn't get that knockout in the first 60 seconds, let's say it happens in minute 3, minute 4, what is the ceiling for him with this DK scoring system? I mean, obviously we're taking in the first round finish, the knockdown, one knockdown. So are you hoping that if you're taking Ngannou that you're getting to 110, 120?
Trying to predict how well he's going to score will have to really depend on the other fights, because at 8,400, he has more flexibility at his salary range where he doesn't really have to get, north of 105 points to make sure that he's optimal, because, the relief in salary allows you to pay up in other spots if, heavy favorites come through. But I do think that for Francis Ngannou in this matchup, right, he's probably going to have to be a little bit more patient. And that patience could definitely affect his DFS production, because if he goes out there reckless, maybe wild like he was in his previous outing against Jairzinho Rosenstruck, and he kind of throws caution to the wind, maybe that's not the best strategy over the course of 5 rounds, because we saw in the first fight, he was, exhausted throughout and kind of just outskilled in the entire MMA department outside of striking. I mean, he had his moments. But I think that he needs to pick his shots better, try not to get over eager in certain situations where he brings his hips forward and really allows Stipe to change levels or clinch up with him. It's going to be interesting. And I can see both sides, because we have a small cage, which is really going to force the action of both combatants, right? But in the same token, Francis is going to want to avoid the clinch, which the small cage is going to definitely influence clinching him a little bit more. So it's going to be, it works for both fighters. At 8,400, I think that he needs to get 90+ points. That's evident. He definitely does. But it also comes down to the rest of the fights. Do we have an underwhelming night where it's a low scoring night? Then you could get by. And if, you avoid the main event, it's probably not the best idea. But if we have some other fights that pop, maybe he doesn't get that 100 points, and Miocic is much more likely to reach that.
Say you're in a 20 max, having 2, 3 lineups to avoid the main event is going to help you separate yourself from the field. I mean, look, you got to have a ton of exposure on the main event, but I think also it's worthy of bringing up the point of if you want to try to separate yourself from the field, potentially maybe having a lineup or two without the main event is not a bad thought process to have. Of course, we are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. Head over to monkeyknifefight.com right now. Sign up using the promo code Awesemo, and you'll get an instant first match deposit up to $50. So let me just throw out a Monkey Knife Fight prop to you, Pete, on the main event. Stipe Miocic, more or less 39.5 strikes. More or less 21.5 significant strikes for Stipe Miocic.
I mean, it depends on who you're backing in the fight, right? Like that's really what comes down to your decision making of that, those particular prop bets. But I think that Stipe is going to have to strike with him, obviously, in moments. But he's going to resort to takedowns a lot more. You would think, right? Like, if he stands in front of, Francis, we've seen him get rocked from Overeem. We've seen him get rocked from Stefan Struve, several fighters that have really hurt him. So I think that I don't know if Stipe can take 35 shots of Ngannou right now. And I don't know if, Stipe really wants to throw 35 shots in front of Ngannou. So I'm curious to see what you would do in that situation.
I might go less on both.
Yeah.
Because I thought one of the more interesting comments that came out this week came yesterday from Daniel Cormier, where he was talking about his third matchup against Stipe, where he said Stipe, what he did was he created a game plan based on the smaller cage. And I thought that was a very interesting mindset that he brought out there. I mean, look, it's clearly the power advantage is to Francis Ngannou in this matchup, no doubt about it. But the better martial artist is Stipe Miocic. The question is, can he get this fight to the ground, and can he make sure that he's staying away? I think that if Ngannou is to knock out Stipe, I truly believe it starts with an uppercut.
I mean, I see it, right? Like the number one thing when you're fighting a wrestler or a grappler is to either, work a knee up the middle, which I think would be silly. If Francis throws any kicks, I think it would be silly. Minus a calf kick. Like I would love to see a mammoth of a human being just calf kick Stipe Miocic. But obviously when you kick, obviously you're bringing hips forward. You're allowing a takedown to happen more often than not. A knee for him, probably not likely. He's reliant on his hand. So uppercut makes a lot of sense in defense of a, going up against an accredited wrestler. For me, though, it's keep him on the outside, pump that jab, eat him up from the outside with the jab. And then maybe the final combination includes an uppercut, but something that he doesn't see coming.
One of the great tools that you can use over Awesemo.com to put your lineup together is our MMA fighter rankings, and that is free today over at Awesemo.com. So check that out. Also free on the site today, NBA player projections and NHL player projections. So, and of course, if you are a premium member, Alex did update the ownership projections a little while ago. So be sure to check out that over at Awesemo.com. And, in terms of roster construction, I thought rosters was for the most part, but when I was hand building my single entry lineups, the thing that I did really notice is there's a great path to leave money on the table. But I think really it comes down to, Pete, is that under 7,500 fighters of who you're going to go to. So, if you want to eat, let's include Shane Young there at 7,500, Jillian Robertson 7,400. Jared Gooden 7,200, Tyron Woodley 7,100, Fabio Charant 7,000, Thomas Almeida 7,000. We can make a case for all those fighters, and that's the thing that we always try to do here at Also is we want to give you both sides of how they're both going to potentially win the fight. Of course, if you ever miss a strategy show, it is a part of the Awesemo Podcast Network. Just go to awesemo.com/podcast to check out the strategy show. And of course, be sure to leave a 5-star rating review with your Twitter handle or email address to enter in for a chance to win a free week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Of course, the new winner is awarded every Friday, and you're eligible for up to 1 year to win that. But Thomas Almeida is a kickboxing matchup. How much does he attack the legs? Fabio Cherant, to me, it's about wearing down Alonzo Menifield, getting this fight against the cage. And to me, I think Fabio Cherant's a live betting potential. If that fight makes it into the late set, if this fight makes it to the third round, I think potentially that's a great live betting scenario for Fabio Cherant. Tyron Woodley, what concerns me about Woodley is if he wins, I think it could be a low-paced decision win for him, so that kind of concerns me there. Jared Gooden, I think he's a massive at 170 as opposed to fighting at 185. Julian Robertson, it's about getting the fight to the ground.
Yeah, I don't really find too many things or too many fighters attractive under 7,500, to be honest. So we can start with Shane Young. Volume guy, he's going to have to outpace and outproduce, Omar Morales in this matchup. It is a striking contest. It's a striker's delight. Morales definitely has the striking edge, in my opinion, as far as technique goes. The power as well, has more kicking dexterity, whereas, Shane Young relies on, like I said, a volume approach, lots of boxing, lots of punches, can pull off a victory. I just don't know if he can really keep that pace against a guy that can answer him in Omar Morales. Underneath that, we have Jillian Robertson. And I think that's somebody that we can talk a little bit more about because of just the unknown surrounding Miranda Maverick, right? We have Jillian Robertson, 6-3 in the UFC. So 9 fights in the UFC, tons of experience. Going up against Miranda Maverick that we saw in only one bout, but she looked incredible in it. Miranda Maverick at 8,800. Interested to see how she deals with some adversity in the cage, right? Can she actually stuff the takedowns of Jillian Robertson? I think she can. But I think that Jillian Robertson is probably one of the most, interesting underdogs out there. 78% finish rate. She's a grappler. Her style really caters to the DraftKings scoring system. So, you have my attention, Jillian Robertson at 7,400. 7,300, we don't have anything. 7,200, Gooden. I think Gooden's interesting, especially because Nurmagomedov hasn't really, lived up to the name, the family name. There's a lot of expectation surrounding him. If he can't get the fight to the ground consistently or keep top position, how is he striking? Because on regional tape, he doesn't really look that impressive. And I wonder if, Gooden can kind of outproduce, maybe hurt him on the feet. But I did watch some more regional tape today, and Gooden got taken down quite a few times. And I know that if you're looking at my heat sheet, it says that he has 100% takedown defensive rating. That's because he had one fight in the UFC against Alan Jouban, who had no interest in taking him down. So I think that there's a clear path for Nurmagomedov. So then it really comes down to, for me, Fabio Cherant, Thomas Almeida, Tyron Woodley. And I kind of had those guys all in the same category. I think that Thomas Almeida has a KO chance. I think that Tyron Woodley has a KO chance. Both, low percentage in my opinion. For Fabio, what I think that you're hoping he can pull off is to withstand the early barrage of the dangerous Alonzo Menifield. Let's get that clear, right? I got some heat from the Thursday show about, just backing my boy Fabio Cherant, but I'll state facts, right? He has been training throughout quarantine this entire time. He's just coming off a beautiful performance in LFA where he captured the light heavyweight title, and he stood up the entire time and really showcased improvements in his boxing. So I think a decision win, the longer the fight goes, it definitely favors Fabio Cherant. Menifield's 2-2 on back-to-back losses. So in your long shot pool, you should be including Fabio Cherant. And I know that I sound really biased with this because he's a friend of mine. But outside looking in, the reason you're going to have so much salary left over, Jason, is because you have Alonzo Menifield at 8,100, who's taking on a guy who stepped up on 3 days' notice, who missed weight. Fabio Cherant missed weight by, a half a pound or whatever. He had a full camp. He has 100% finish rate. Besides me, you would look at this fight as a free square on any other card, right? You would sit there and say, okay, we got a free square in Alonzo Menifield at 8,100 because of all those factors I just talked about. He's a massive 209 minus 290 favorite at 8,100. So people obviously are going to smash that. And I think that, you need exposure to this fight. I just think, as far as GPP long shots, my buddy Fabio can definitely pull it off. He has to be very careful.
So mentioning about those bottom three, Almeida, Cherant, and Woodley. And when I was developing my lineups in Cruncher, I limited my exposure to them to 10%. I didn't want to go much higher. I am under the field on Alonzo Minifield. I put him at 40%. I didn't want to go any higher. I mean, look, if you don't limit your exposure, you're going to get massive amounts of Alonzo Minifield. So I wanted to limit my exposure a little bit there. You know, I will tell you, there was other fighters I wanted to limit my exposure on. I wanted to, Vicente Luque was one of them. I look at that fight, and I can really see a potential. That's a very low scoring matchup. Nurmagomedov, I think I had him about 25% exposure. Maverick was one of my highest owned. I think potentially sees a great play over on FanDuel. You know, and then, you know, when you look at some must roster fights, I think there's 3 fights that you have to hit if you want to be optimal. One of them is the main event. The other 2 are Malarkey and Worthy, and then Modestas and Mihail. I think those are the 3 fights in terms of GPP that you have to hit. If you are on the wrong side of those 3 fights, I just don't see I don't see the path to being optimal.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
That's it, right?
That's it.
Wow.
I'm with you.
I appreciate the you know, but yeah, but look, it's actually, and speaking of that Modestas fight, we actually got a question over in Slack where Dave said, he goes, I'd like to hear more on the Modestas Mihail fight. It's really the only one I can't get a gauge on based on you guys in your first video. Seems Mihail is the favorite, but Pete is leaning the other way. I'd like to hear why and hear your take also.
Yeah, so for the Olaschechuk and the Modestas Bukauskas fight, you know, it's more of fading Olaschechuk to this point because, you know, of his PED violation. You know, that happened early on in his UFC career. He is 2-2 in the UFC. But I feel like his first impression really caught us by surprise, and he looked like an absolute monster in there. And he was like, wow. And then he popped for PEDs. And we haven't really seen that same type of fighter since. I mean, yeah, he's gotten some victories in the cage. You know, clearly not an incredible grappler, but Bukauskas is not a good grappler as well. And this should be a striking affair. And I know that Bukauskas is looking to rebound from a knockout loss to Jimmy Crute. 91% finish rate for Bukauskas, who's, you know, the bigger guy in this situation, 3 inches taller, 4 inches longer. And I think that, you know, in a back and forth affair, I do favor Bukauskas to just, you know, ever so slightly get the better of some exchanges, because I feel like this is a matchup that's kind of like tailor-made to his strengths. He's always having to fight wrestlers. Jason knows this. He's interviewed him for a very long time. He's always having to defend takedowns and counter with his elbows in the clinch and all of that stuff. So, like, for me, if I'm looking at 7K options, Bukauskas has to be one of the guys that I'm, you know, not confident in, because you're not confident in any of the 7K guys. But I think that Bukauskas is somebody that can go out there and maybe break the slate in a back and forth type of fight. Olaschechuk to this point, I don't want to keep just resorting back to that debut performance where he looked incredible. I mean, that was quite some time ago.
But he's a finisher, and his fights typically end in the first, second round. That's why I think in terms of GPP, it's a fight you got to look at. You know, you can see it's 2 different body frames for this weight class between those 2. You know, Modestas more that tall, skinnier fighter for this division. You know, to me, I think for Modestas, it's about keeping range and not allowing this to become a clinch grappling matchup against. But look, you mentioned a great point. You know, if it does get into that, Mihail has to be concerned with those elbows. Look, this is one of those fights that I was in that, you know, 40-30 exposure between these 2 guys. I truly believe you have to do that. But I really think that, and you mentioned the point, anytime Modestas fights, he understands that people are likely going to be looking to take him to the ground. So to me, it is very much a key matchup that we have to hit on there. Of course, we do have a great promo going on over at Awesemo.com with MLB opening day on Thursday. It's amazing that MLB seasons are here, of course, and we have a great deal for you. Get your first 9 days of Awesemo Plus MLB for only $9 when you use the promo code STARTING9. That's starting with the number 9 at the end. That gives you access to everything we have to offer for MLB DFS, including player projections, ownership projections, top stacks, lineup builder, and our premium Slack channel, and so much more. This offer is valid through April the 9th. Stop guessing. Start winning. Join Awesemo Awesemo Plus MLB today. I was actually telling buddy last night, we were sitting there having a cocktail. I said, man, I can't believe MLB season's already here. So check out that great promo that we do have over at awesemo.com. You can see it right there at the bottom of the screen to take advantage of that as well. Value punt plays. I think we kind of touched on this a little bit here. And I think that I can make a case for a lot of these guys. And, you know, and when I look at in terms of trying to leverage the salary, to me, I think is if you're really looking to make a punt play, it's either Fabio Chiron or Thomas Almeida.
Man,
I know you don't want to go there. I'm going the Jared Gooden route more than anything else.
Yeah.
But I think that is definitely going to be a little bit, you know, it's not a sneaky play at all. People are feeling the same thing. But if you want to really separate yourself, if you put Fabio Chiron or Thomas Almeida in your lineup, you are going to help separate yourself.
Yeah. So let me kind of piggyback off of what you're saying right there, just so that our listeners understand what we're talking about. And we appreciate you guys being here. I mean, we have over 300 people here. If you guys can hit that like button, show your appreciation to the channel and to our show, we really appreciate it. I will say that with large ownership comes tons of leverage on the opposite direction, of course, right? So like you can already look at the card and kind of predict the ownership, but if you need ownership, you can head on over to awesemo.com. We got you covered. Menifield at 8,100, you know that he's going to be like what people consider a free square. And I mentioned of how it makes sense. I get it. But if you want to play ownership and leverage and go against the grain, like when people zig, you zag, you target the opposite fighter. You know, Chiron's an interesting GPP long shot play. Same thing for Thomas Almeida, because you know O'Malley has that notoriety. He has that name value. He has really built up a brand that people like to get behind. And especially when you start putting people on your highlight reels, you know, it's hard not to want to back that guy. But let's also not forget what happened in the most previous outing where Marlon Vera, you know, hit him with a couple shots, hurt his leg, and then followed up on the ground. We can look at that and criticize that performance from Marlon Vera. But, you know, O'Malley needs to really prove something in this matchup about his durability. And Almeida is another excellent leverage play. And with leverage comes a lot of opportunity to jump the leaderboards where, you know, O'Malley's probably going to be 50% owned, I'd say, at least.
Yeah, O'Malley's going to have high ownership, but you have to imagine that the Almeida team, a big part of their game plan has to be, let's attack that leg and let's see what adjustments that Sean O'Malley has made in the training room. What has Tim Welch's head coach done to try to limit what potentially could be there and what we've seen? In terms of MVP and champion plays, you know, obviously you're looking straight at the main event. I mentioned if Miocic wins, you got to have him in the MVP spot, champion spot. He has potential to just rack up a ton of points. You know, I mentioned about Miranda Maverick. I think is an interesting, sneaky MVP play just because of the potential of she may have to be stopping those takedown attempts from Jillian Robertson. Just kind of looking at over at our ownership projections. I mean, look, it's not hard to figure out the top couple of fires that you're going to go with, but if you're looking to leverage against the field, I'm actually surprised at the ownership on Stipe Miocic as the MVP over on FanDuel. But, you know, you want to look at, you know, I mean, I think you got to look at the Common Worthy Jamie Malarkey fight. Someone's going to win by finish in that one. You got to look at the Mihail and Modestas fight. Someone's going to win by finish in that one.
Yeah. For me, and I'm glad you brought him up because like we kind of like talked about options underneath him. I really like Malarkey today as like he might be my favorite underdog on the slate. And it's more about fading Common Worthy to this point. I understand Malarkey's winless in his 2 fights in the UFC. He's starving for a victory. Regionally, you know, Common Worthy, he has that killer be killed mentality. And throughout his career, he has plenty of knockouts, 75% finish rate out of 16 victories. But 6 of his 7 defeats come by way of knockout. And to this point, you have to really start to worry about his chin if he gets hit, you know. And Malarkey, not really that impressive on the feet, but has some, you know, some good highlights, some good regional wins, and definitely can put together some combinations that could hurt Worthy. But it's the grappling of Malarkey that, to me, at 7,600, he's a guy that I went over the field on, 92% finish rate as well. Strong grappling, strong ground game. I understand Hama Worthy is a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so don't sleep on his ground game. But, as far as 7K punts, if I'm looking outside of Stipe Miocic, I think the second guy that I was getting a lot of was Jamie Mullarkey.
Of course, someone's already mentioned over our side chat, Neil, saying that you've got his ownership up on Charant, and everyone's saying that he's adjusting his ownership on Alonzo Menifield. Are we going 100% on anybody today? Are you doing your Ryan Spann?
No. I'm not doing my Ryan Spann, Eric Anders type of thing today. It's just not a card where I feel like I think it's going to go in some surprising ways. And I really, truly feel like in my gut, the optimal lineup is going to include 3 dogs. I do. I feel like it's going to include 3 dogs. And I think that you're going to have to make sure that it's correct. So any salary left over is fine by me. The more salary leave over, the more contrarian your lineup is. When it comes to Fabio Charant, Tyron Woodley, I kind of have him in the same percentage thing. Like, obviously, personally, my boy, I'm backing him and I want him to win. But giving you guys advice, like, I think that it's still a low percent play, but should be included in your GPP pool. Like, he's not somebody to cross off. Absolutely not. Like, he could definitely pull the upset here the longer the fight goes.
Yeah. In terms of some of those betting lines, one of the things that I looked at was Tyron Woodley inside the distance. That's got a good prop on it. You look at, the line, and I mentioned that this is if you can live bet, you can really get some, like I said, if Charant Menifield gets to the 3rd round, I would look at Fabio Charant live betting him. But when I look at some other odds that, stick out to me, how about Abu Azaitar at plus 115?
Yeah, I like him. And I do like him in this matchup. I think that the only thing that you could be worried about is inactivity, but also the slight, size disadvantage going up against Marc-Andre Barriault. But Andre Barriault, is winless because his last fight was overturned to a no contest. He did finally look good. Regionally, Marc-Andre Barriault, he looked good. He found a lot of TKO finishes. But I think that this is going to be a back and forth type of fight, maybe some clinching. Not really a priority for me. I understand that both guys bring it, but Barriault will sometimes, concede position and allow his opponents to get off. And if Azaitar gets rolling, he throws some awesome combinations, gets people's hands up. He likes to also add in body shots. He doesn't discriminate to the head or body, which I really like. And I think that at 8,000, that's why you're going to see so much salary left over. You got 8,000 Azaitar. You got minus 290 favorite in Menifield at 8,100. Like, people are going to kind of play that mid-range. And when you play that mid-range, you're going to have tons of salary left over.
I would just say this, watching Azaitar, of course, coming off that suspension, I don't think he missed bench press day.
On who?
Azaitar. If you just looked at him on the scale, I'm like, he does not miss any strength conditioning sessions.
You know what's weird though? Like, it's, I don't know if you guys notice it because it depends on how deep you are into studying film and all that. But like week to week, when you're seeing people step on a scale, Azaitar's got a weird shaped body, man. Like he's weird, man. Like, I don't know. And it goes to show you that genetics are crazy. And like a guy like Francis Ngannou looked even better than his first fight against Stipe Miocic on the scale. And a guy like Azaitar, he didn't look bad. It's just like his body's weird. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah. Of course, as Pete mentioned, we do appreciate all the thumbs up here. Of course, be sure to subscribe to Awesemo. We got a ton of great content, coming for you next week with the start of MLB. So subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live here on the channel. But let's start getting into those questions. You can submit those in our premium Slack channel. Also, you can put those over here in YouTube. So we'll start off with a Fabio Charant question. This comes from Matt. Is Charant actually a better value than Menifield? I think Charant is about $700 cheaper than he should be. They both have KO power, but Charant can go 3 rounds. Menifield has 3 minutes.
Yeah, so obviously this is a tough subject for me to talk about. But I will say that Menifield at 8,100, forget the odds, the fact that he's almost a 3-to-1 favorite. he should be like in general, like priced at 9,000 because of the odds. So you're getting a significant discount there. If I were to make a case for Alonzo Menifield, which I think that it's going to be viewed as a free square, he's fighting a guy who didn't really have a full training camp on 3 days notice. The only thing, right, like Fabio Cherant has submissions and he has a good, strong ground game. It's just the advancements in his boxing and how good he looked in his LFA performance just a few weeks ago where he captured the title against Myron Dennis. That whole fight was on the feet, and it was 5 rounds, and he went and had a good pace throughout. Obviously, I'm worried about the short notice. Obviously, I'm worried about the debut against Alonzo Menifield. Like, if we're being real, there are plenty of other fighters that you would want Fabio to debut against because it would be a much easier matchup. I mean, Menifield's a monster. Like, Menifield is a monster. And, there's definitely paths to victory for Fabio Cherant. That's why I said include him in your long shot play. Personally, I'll be rooting for him like crazy.
Miles says, can Gooden score enough in a win on FanDuel? I say yes, because I think a big part of that will be is he'll be having to stop and takedown attempts. Question for FanDuel Cash. Pick the better duo, Stipe and Gooden or Ngannou and Cherant?
Stipe and Gooden.
Yeah, that would be mine as well. Of course, be sure to rock the Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. And if you do that, you could win a free month of Awesemo Plus when you place within the top 3 in any GPP of 5,000 plus entries. Head over to awesemo.com/announcements/avatar or simply Google search Awesemo Avatar for instructions on how to download those images. I always love to see those Awesemo handles on the leaderboards as I am checking my lineups throughout the night. Trey goes, how much is too much Alonzo in a DK20 max? I have my number.
I think like in a 20. Okay, so real quick, exposure levels for 150 max are completely different than exposure levels for a 20 max. You can't get to every combination in the 20 max. In a 150 max, you can get to a lot. And that's when you can start to add in these low underdogs. But go ahead. I want to hear it.
60% to me is my line of I wouldn't go more than that.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, honestly, like put a different name on Menifield and Cherant and at 8,100. I think that if you want to be with the field, sometimes there's good chalk, and a lot of people will consider this good chalk. But GPP target, long shot, Cherant.
Yeah. Eddie goes, feel like the Menifield fight kind of ruined the slate on DraftKings.
Yeah, so it's going to make it chalky, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's going to make it chalky. Like, Alonzo Menifield is going to come in with crazy ownership, and that's why I said that he's, Cherant's a leverage play for sure because you're just kind of zigging while they're zagging.
Top 3 fights to fade, top 3 fights to roster. We've already talked about the top 3 fights you got to roster. I'm not fading any fight. I think that maybe I'm trying to think of fights that I don't have a ton of exposure to.
I mean, Morales is young to me. I don't know if that's really like, I understand it's a striker's delight, but to me, it doesn't really show a ton of DFS production. I mean, like, I don't know. I think that defensively, 65% striking defense for Morales, 56% for Shane Young. It could be like a tit for tat type of matchup, low production.
Safest FanDuel cash MVP, O'Malley, Francis, or Lache? I gotta feel it's O'Malley. Between those 3.
Yeah, I would have to say that.
And like I said about Lache, what scares me about Lache is a low pace fight. You know, when you've seen these when he's had the dance partner to have that high volume fight, we've seen Brian Barberena, perfect example of that. I just don't think Woodley's the dance partner to bring that out.
It's crazy though, because like maybe Woodley's in 3 rounds, so like he's extremely dangerous. But I think that Lache could coast and just outclass him 5 strikes per minute and not really come through with a large score. But there's no way that you could avoid getting to Lache.
Who scores more in a win, Jared Gooden or Julian Robertson?
Robertson.
That's what I was thinking too. The only thing that I would say would concern about Julian Robertson is just a low pace fight, and doesn't get you the points that you would be hoping for. That would be my only concern about that.
Yeah, I just think like if you were looking at stats, right, and you did no film study at all, you see Julian Robertson 9-5, 6-3 in the UFC against a 1-0. You know, sometimes experience really shows in matchups. And there's an unknown regarding Miranda Maverick's skill to get up from the ground or prevent takedowns. So 7,400, honestly, like I think that Robertson as a punt play is an excellent punt play.
Is there anyone that you're fading as a MVP?
Yeah, I mean, like there's like Woodley. I wouldn't put Woodley in MVP spot. I think that would be ultra contrarian. Almeida, I probably wouldn't either. Charant, I wouldn't either in the captain spot, because those are just like, there's other fighters on here on this slate that should pop in those spots.
Do you guys think taking Nurmagomedov as your only 9K guy at low ownership to get different in GPP could potentially become optimal?
I like it. What's the projection on Nurmagomedov? What do you think? Do you think he's going to come in heavily owned with the last name and the notoriety surrounding his family? You would imagine that people see it and just smash it, because there are a ton of casuals that play. So
I think he'll be around 30%. Maybe a little more than that.
Nurmagomedov.
I will tell you this: I don't love the 9K options this week.
No, I mean that they're hard. All three of them are tough to trust, right? Like Lache's not tough to trust. It's just, does he come through and really get a finish or a strong performance, like a 90 to 100 points in a striking match? Probably not. I don't know. O'Malley, KO chance, tough to trust. Nurmagomedov, one fight in the UFC against Gooden, who is a puncher. Habib Nurmagomedov was interviewed yesterday and talked all about Abubakar, and was talking about how in his entire career he's never seen him look so good, so strong, and so focused. So, read into that carefully. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not going to go up there and just kind of throw shade at him. But I do wonder, training with Habib as like a coach and mentor and around Team Eagle and those guys, like, I'm sure he's made strides and is better. Maybe got that first one out of the way and he can actually show a better self now.
Yeah, this is my concern on Lache, is if this thing goes 15 minutes, what is the ceiling for the amount of points he can score? Not going to wrestle. Like, if he doesn't, he's going to get knockdowns.
Yeah,
I just that is why I think you do have I think on both sides of the fight, there's buyer beware on both sides. But I look at it and say, okay, let's say Vicente Luque wins a 15-minute decision. What is the ceiling that he could get to?
It's so tough to say, like, and try to project points, because like he could knock him down. We saw Gilbert Burns knock him down, and I think Vicente Luque has crisper striking, maybe not as powerful. But technically, he is better than Gilbert Burns, striking wise.
But, is this
Woodley's tough, man? Woodley is tough, and trying to get a finish over him would be huge. And then you're really putting all your eggs into the knockdown basket. That is a low percentage play.
Woodley's back is against the wall here. He knows he has to win no matter what. Now that can lead to maybe we see a more aggressive T Wood in the fight. Or, maybe you see a guy that tries to fight safe and we see T Wood go back to his wrestling.
I don't think you'll see T Wood go back to his wrestling. I can almost I don't want to say guarantee, but I don't think that's going to happen, because it's just not in Woodley's nature. That's like so much effort. And I think that he really got by with just landing those big shots that he's going to kind of, swing for the fences, try to hit that home run shot. And Luque, if you wanted to really make a case for Woodley, Lache does get hit quite a bit. I mean, his striking output, 5.72 strikes per minute, and he does receive 5.82 strikes per minute. So, like, his defense is not really all the way there because he kind of stands right in front of his opponents. And if Woodley hits him, can he put him away? I worry about that. I do worry about that. But for me, I would say play Vicente Luque and don't even overthink it.
Who has a shot at the most points?
Who has a shot at the most points? I think it's Stipe Miocic.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to be there. See here. FanDuel single entry, Azatar or Bukauskas as the last piece. I would.
Is it rough on FanDuel as far as like building lineups? I didn't construct any lineups over there.
Pretty easy. I mean, the only thing that kind of I think that makes it difficult is if you're putting O'Malley in because he's $23. But I think overall it's a pretty easy build over there as well.
Okay, I mean, you're getting a massive salary, savings, not massive, $3 from Bukauskas at 12 to Azatar at 15. I would probably say Bukauskas at 12 would be my lean in that situation of those two.
Here's the other thing. I don't love playing the first fight of the night, but if we look at the past couple of cars, you've had to have the first fight of the night in your lineup.
I don't know if I view this week the same though, right? Like it's a weird matchup. Like it is weird. And it's like, it could be a lot of clinching. Azatar could throw some monster combinations, get taken down, be on his back. Barrio could allow him to get. It could be. It smells like a decision to me. It really does.
All right, over under on the amount of fights that end in a finish. 5.5.
I'm saying under. That's a high number.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know. I mean. Who's getting a finish?
Okay, I see O'Malley Almeida being a finish.
Okay, I'll give that to you.
Malarkey Worthy.
I'll give that to you.
Menifield Charant.
I'll give that to you. After that,
then it gets tricky. Okay, if Ngannou wins, it's a stoppage, but if Miocic wins, likely decision.
I'm taking the under, Jason. I'm taking the under on that.
Co-main event goes decision, I believe. Robertson Maverick.
That's a decision.
I say 60-40 chance on stoppage there.
Okay.
Gooden Nurmagomedov, I think, is likely 15 minutes.
Decision.
Modestas Mihail, stoppage. Shane Young Morales and Barrio Azatar, those are coin flips to me.
I'm saying under 5.5.
Hey, but also look, we could have some guys there going out there bonus hunting. So appreciate that. Samuel, appreciate you in the super chat. He goes, whose lower own can make the optimal?
Whose lower own can make the optimal? Well,
so to me, when I'm looking at that, okay, I got to look at people who are under 20%.
Malarkey, Robertson.
Those would be two, and we're got them projected a little more than 20%. But I think you got to look at that core of Modestas, Gooden, Young, Woodley, Almeida, Charant. Those to me are the fighters that potentially have a chance to really break this slate in terms of you have to have them in your lineup if you want to become, have that optimal lineup.
Yeah, I'm saying Robertson and Malarkey in that situation.
Yeah. Of course, we do have our March Madness course is underway. Of course, Sweet 16 started today. And be sure to sign up for our March Madness DFS package, which is for $9.95. Of course, you can get those college basketball DFS projections with an Awesemo Plus Platinum Pass, or you can just purchase the March Madness Pass there for $9.95. Gives you access to all the projections we have for the rest of the tournament. Of course, be sure to check out Odd Shopper, where, of course, you can price out the lines and figure out the best place to where you want to place your bet. Next up, let's go over here to YouTube. Actually, Sam over our Slack, he goes, is Maverick or Nurmagomedov coming in lower owned? If you're looking to play ownership there, you want to play the Maverick side of the equation. I think people are falling in love. They fall in love with that name. But I like how you mentioned about there on that weigh-in show the UFC had yesterday. Khabib's interesting comments. Interesting comments.
I love Khabib, and I loved seeing those additional interviews and kind of like those segments with DC and Habib and, very interesting comments. And I will say that if you are big and you view like training with Habib in a high regard, obviously you think Nurmagomedov is going to, show a better account of himself in this fight. I will say that Abu Azaitar has been working with Habib's team for a while as well. Whether they're sparring partners or they're training partners, they've been working together as well. So that's just something to know.
Do you like the over 1.5 in the Menifield-Charant fight?
I do like the over.
Yeah. Let's see here. If Fabio wins and makes the optimal, can we get an Awesemo interview?
100%. I hope he wins.
I will tell you, I have a very good relationship with Fabio Charant's management team. I'm sure that if he wins, they'll be hitting me up this week. I'm sure I'll get that text message about 1 a.m. tonight. But I have a very good relationship with his management team.
I'm looking forward to him with a full camp in a different spot more than this. I mean, like, obviously, like, you're worried about several factors in this fight.
Missing weight too.
Yeah. And let's be real. Like, if you look at the weigh-ins, like, he missed weight, was basically off by 0.5 pound, chose not to cut the rest because the fight should have been agreed upon at like a higher weight, but it wasn't. It wasn't. So, Jason, I've looked at this card, and each week I look at the cards, and I really want to think, like, do you prioritize the main event, fights, or the co-main event? Like, if you wanted to stack, where would you like roster most of your lineup from? The main event? Not the main event. You know what I'm saying? The main card.
Main card versus
main card or the preliminary bouts. I can't speak. I'm sorry.
Well, we only have 5 prelims, 5 main card fights. I'd probably prefer the main card because
main card, huh?
Yeah, just looking at the prelims. So the prelims would be Menifield-Charant, Good Nurmagomedov, Modestas Mihail, Young Morales, Barriot, Azaitar. I would probably say I'd be looking 4 fighters from the main card, 2 from prelims.
Yeah, I think that prioritizing the main card might make more sense.
Who scores more to win, Woodley or Almeida?
I think it's Almeida. Woodley's going to throw like 2 shots the entire fight.
Yeah, I was thinking that one too. Menifield or Marc-Andre Barrault?
The Menifield Fabio Charant fight for sure.
Jacob says, "Can we stack a match?" To me, it's
no.
I don't see. I even though it's only 10 fights, I'm like, okay, what fight? If there was a God,
you ain't stacking.
I can't see a fight where you would stack.
No, you're not stacking.
And I think because in the DraftKings scoring system, if you got to be counting on takedowns and knockdowns for that to really be a foreseeable thought process.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie says, he goes, I just did the math for the first Stipe versus Francis fight and got 147 DraftKings for Stipe under new scoring system. Does that match what you've got? I believe it's actually 140 with the new scoring system.
Yeah, you don't have to do the new scoring system.
They updated everything. Yeah, they updated everything.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Someone asked about stacking cash. I would say no. Who's busting the slate? I think it's got to be one of those big underdogs.
I think it's the winner of the Worthy Malarkey. Like, we haven't talked about, Kama Worthy, and that's a guy that's been really good to you in the UFC and had one of the most impressive debuts, kind of went in there and just, stole the show and knocked out his opponent. And Can definitely replicate it. I mean, his power is live, his speed is live. It's just defensively, he's a liability on the feet nowadays. So, yeah, we'll have to see with that fight. But I do like Malarkey quite a bit.
Would Stipe weighing in 30 pounds lighter than Ngannou be an advantage or disadvantage in the gameplay of takedowns and avoiding the big shot?
So him coming in leaner is great for 5 rounds because he's going to be able to push a higher pace. That's probably the strategy. Drag Francis to deep water, similar to the first fight. And over the course of 5 rounds, the longer the fight goes, you have the advantage. Now, up against the cage, though, like you're lighter, so maybe weighing against Ngannou isn't going to fatigue him so much. But it's not the weight that usually fatigues fighters. It's the pace that fatigues fighters. And I think that Miocic coming in comfortable wherever he feels, and he looked great in his previous outing. I think it makes a lot of sense for him to come into this fight the same way.
Appreciate everyone in here on a Saturday afternoon for the MMA Live Before Lock show. Of course, coming up next, we'll get you into NBA Deeper Dive with Spags and Greg. Of course, appreciate everyone that's in here. Of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe. We got a ton of great shows for you, whether it's MMA, NBA, MLB is coming back next week. So be sure to also hit that notification bell so you know when a show is live here on the channel. Try to get through some of these questions, a little rapid fire a little bit here as we start to wrap up the show. Favorite low-owned FanDuel MVP, Miranda Maverick would be for me.
Yeah, I like it. I like that pick.
Yeah. Someone said Maverick low-owned pivot. I'd like her more on the FanDuel side of thing because of the potential of stopping those takedowns. That's kind of where I'm at with her.
Yeah, DraftKings, she's really not too appealing.
Yeah. Last man in DraftKings, anyone 7,200 and below.
Gosh. I would probably say in that range, stick with Gooden. He could definitely pull off the upset.
Robertson or Maverick?
Straight up, I like Maverick in the fight, but Robertson has more potential.
Would you play Charant and Malarkey together?
This week I would, because I'm playing three underdogs together.
Who's getting the 60-second bonus tonight?
I don't think anybody is.
The easy answer would be Francis, obviously. That would
could be Sean O'Malley. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah. Eddie says, has the stock ever been optimal? Yes, it has. Don't I recall the first meeting between Volkanovski and Holloway was optimal? Was that
I mean, that was it was a crazy paced and 5-round fight, cheap salaries. That's situations where it happens.
Dylan asked me if I had talked to Kama leading up to this one. I did not talk to Kama leading up to this one. Woodley or Charant?
Former champ Woodley.
Who's going to take down City?
Could be good in getting taken down by Nurmagomedov.
Yeah. Top captain on DraftKings. I still think it's got to be Stipe.
Stipe.
Just because the ceiling to me is so high for him. Who is a fighter we're not talking about?
Who are we not talking about?
Is it Shane Young?
Probably. Or Olashechuk, right? Like Morales too. Like those are 3 fighters we haven't really touched on. They're kind of all okay to me, but I think mid-range wins this slate.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting once we get through tonight just to see if any of the 9,000 fighters end up being in that optimal lineup.
Yeah.
Of course, so, we got, still have plenty of time here before lock. Lock is not till 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So good luck to everyone. I will be in the Slack channel. So if you do have any questions, you can hit me up in there leading up towards lock. Of course, coming up next is NBA Deeper Dive with Spags and Greg to get you ready for tonight's NBA slate. And thank you to our sponsor, Monkey Knife Fight. Head over to monkeyknifefight.com. And when you use that promo code, also get an instant first match deposit of up to $50. That is going to be something I'm going to be looking at here over the next hour or so of what prop bets can I potentially find some numbers I like. So that's going to do it for MMA Live for Lock. Appreciate everyone tuning in here on a Saturday. And good luck tonight. And me and Pete will be back here 2 weeks. No UFC next week. No UFC next week. Yes. Oh, apparently Pete didn't even know that. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Next UFC show, April the 10th. So good luck to everyone tonight. Coming up next is NBA Deeper Dive with Spags and Greg.